Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
All right.
Let's get ready to podcast.
We're live for the first time in like a month.
First time this year.
First time 2025, first time in like a month. Sorry to everybody listening live or not live, because either way, it's been at least a couple weeks since you've heard a new episode.
Well, it was new to them. We had a couple in the can, so they heard some stuff when we were.
Yeah, but we did take 2 weeks off of new episodes. I guess if you're listening to it live, it's only been a week off, but by the time this goes out next week, it'll have been 2 weeks off. All right, so tonight's topic is pretty simple. It's New Year's 2025, new year, new me, or new you, or whatever they say. So just thought we would talk about kind of where we want to go as a podcast, where we want to go as individuals, what our thoughts and goals for 2025 are.
Can I wrap up 2024 first?
Sure.
So here's my vacation in 2024. Christmas week, my wife and I rented through Vrbo what we thought was going to be like a condo, but it turned out just to be like a regular timeshare place at Myrtle Beach that was just using Vrbo to not look like they were a regular timeshare place. Like it looked like someone owned a condo and they were, in an apartment. But no, it was just like the Caribbean resort and villa just using Vrbo to fool us. Or maybe it was someone, selling their week of the timeshare. But in any case, we got there and everything was done through Caribbean Resort. So as my wife and I, we had a master bedroom with on the 11th floor of a 21, I say 21-story building, but there was no 13th floor. So unless that went to John Malkovich's head, it was a 20-story building that was labeled 21. And we were on the 11th floor. We had a gorgeous view of the ocean, and you could hear the waves. We were right on the ocean, not on the ocean, but on the beach, and not on the beach, but next to the beach, near the ocean. And we could hear the waves. And Joseph and Leah each had their own room with patios that they had to turn to the side to look because we were like a corner, but they had an ocean view if they just turned the chair. It was beautiful. And then my mom came with us, as first, rather than leave her alone with my dad Jan, we brought her with us. And she had a room with a home personal bathroom with a walk-in shower. So it was perfect. Perfect. What could go wrong? Okay, I'll tell you. First of all, they're doing construction the whole time we're there, except Christmas Day. I guess they were going. But it sounded like we were at a testing facility for jackhammers, like during 9 to 6 every day. So it wasn't affecting sleeping, but unless you wanted to take a nap in the middle of the day because you're on vacation and you're running around shopping and doing stuff, which, my 84-year-old mom kind of wanted to. So noisy as hell, we complain. And they're like, well, if you could find someplace else to go, we'll refund you whatever days you don't stay. We'll let you leave early and refund you, which just goes to prove it wasn't really a Vrbo because the resort was offering to refund us. And we couldn't find a place for all of us to stay like that was going to be comparable cost, because we still have to pay for that out of our pocket, getting this money back. So we were stuck there. Okay, fine. Except for the time when my mom was like, why is the floor wet? I'm like, oh, because the room upstairs has a leak and stucco and water are dripping down through the ceiling and on top of all the vegetables that we had on the counter. So we call and they come in, look at our mess, go upstairs, turn it off so it stops leaking. Fine. They said they'll give us a bit of a refund because we had a waterfall unit that we didn't order. Okay, fine, great, wonderful. So it's noisy, it's wet. Everything else is going to be fine. Oh, except that when we were cooking food on Thursday night and the oven turns off in the middle of cooking the food. It turns off. Can't get it, go back on, call maintenance. Someone finally comes up and there is a breaker box that we didn't realize was in the room, and it tripped a breaker. So they untripped it. Oven comes back on. Continue cooking my food. Everything's way overdone. And I'm like, maybe because I left it in the oven when it was turned off. But oh, wait, let me turn the oven off. It's not off. Oh, I did turn the oven off. Then why is it still glowing orange? The element is at full blast and it's off. Let me turn it to like 200 degrees. No, it's still at full blast. Oh, everything's overcooked because the oven is at full blast and will not turn off even when I turn it to off. I can't turn it off. Called maintenance. They came up. They ended up just flipping the breaker off again. And we're like, it's fine. We'll live with it. We won't use the stovetop or the oven. We're fine. Next day, went to the aquarium all morning with friends and with a listener. Hey, Cherry Butt. And we get back, and my mom didn't come with us because 84, she's not going to walk around the aquarium all day. She had fallen asleep watching TV. While she was asleep, maintenance apparently came into the room because the refrigerator was moved out, like they were trying to get behind the counters or whatever, and they hadn't pushed it back. And the breaker was turned on, and the oven was on at full blast. My mother's asleep in the room, and the room is like 85 degrees as the oven is just radiating heat. And like if we hadn't come back, we would have had baked mom. And ironically, one day we were walking on the beach earlier, and we saw huge puffs of smoke down the end of the beach. We took a bunch of pictures, and later on found it was a hotel fire just down the avenue from where we were. So I guess we were going for fire number 2. So we packed up and went home. We had lunch at Friendly's. It was like a blast of a Generation X past to go to a Friendly's, and then went home from there.
There's a Friendly's in Myrtle Beach.
Goddamn Friendly's!
I have to tell Sarah that because
it was very cool. We
didn't get a chance to get any Friendly's, and we love Friendly's. So.
There's 2 actually. When we went online, like to just check the menu real fast, and there were 2 locations on Myrtle Beach. Or maybe one was in North Myrtle, but they're adjacent. Sweet. There's also, more importantly, the high point of the vacation. The high point, besides seeing my best friend's amazingly cute grandchildren, spending the time with them at the aquarium, the high point of the vacation. Anchor Bar from Buffalo, inventors of the Buffalo Wing, have a Myrtle Beach location that opened this past summer. Nice. And the wings were, you'll have to visit Brooklyn Brothers Food Review for my Christmas special review of Anchor wings to see how the wings were. But they were fucking good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So my Christmas vacation.
Oh, and then
my Christmas vacation.
And then my car won't start. We rented a car. We got home. My regular car won't start. It's still in my driveway.
Damn, that's pretty bad. Not as bad as my Christmas vacation, though, because my Christmas vacation, I had to go to Massachusetts. So anyway, no, I'm sorry that sucks that all that shit happened.
There was a lot of good times in the vacation, just not the room.
Yeah, I will say this: if your mother was hot because of the oven being on, any old person in my family would have just thought that the heat was working correctly because they
her too. She keeps her heat at 75 in the house here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people in the family where the rest of us are sweating, and the old people are like, "Can we turn the heat up?" And we're like, "Not if you want us to survive." Like, so.
Because when we had relatives, my brother and his family and extended family visiting, they must have been messing with the heat because they broke the thermostat. Like if they left, the thermostat was broken in the house. I had to replace my mother's thermostat. So I'm sure they were messing with the heat every day, trying to get the temperatures that each one of them liked.
Yeah.
So I got to do it like a classroom and buy one of those plastic boxes that goes over the thermostat when they visit and lock it with a master lock so they can't mess with the thermostat.
Yeah. All right. So
that
onward.
was 2024. Let's enter into 2025, shall we? Well, my car won't start. That's 2025 news. But there's a service that comes to your house and will diagnose your car in the driveway. So they're coming tomorrow morning and maybe even fix it. I think it's a fuel injection type thing because it just won't turn over. But the battery will try 1,000 times, so I don't think the battery's
dead. Yeah. That could be alternator too, right?
Yes. So that usually drains the battery. That usually makes the battery not charge. Like that usually kills the battery. My battery seems fine. It's just won't start.
Yeah. For viewers watching, I waved to Alex's wife, who is visible to us, but not to you.
It's weird. It's a genetic thing with her. I think she's part vampire.
It is. That's true. I heard that about her. And it's clear that he's not paying attention to us because he's talking to her. Anyway, cool. So they're gonna hopefully fix your car.
Yeah, because my little baby brother's coming to visit Wednesday, and we're going to give him one of the cars, so we need to have the other one.
Yeah, I would offer you the Corvette, but it's not fucking running, so it's a moot point. It's a moo point. You haven't watched Friends that much, but
I'm familiar. So anyway, my wife and daughter watch Friends incessantly, so I probably have every episode memorized just out of order.
Good. So, all right. So let's start with personal stuff for 2025, and then we can dive into what we want for the podcast and Chocolate Diamond and whatever. None of it's official, but just what we're hoping. So personally, I so far in 2025, I know we're only 6 days in at the time of recording, and like 15 days in by the time you've heard this, if you're listening to it on the RSS feed. But I finished writing my first novel. I don't want to say first draft because it's more than a first draft, but it's not quite. It was a first complete draft. Now, lots and lots of it have been edited 5 or 6 times over the course of the last year and a half while I've been working on, I would lose track a little bit and then I'd go back and edit a bit. And so
when I was
some
writing
of it
poetry, I would say I've reached the end of my poem, never that it was finished, because I can always edit it more. It was never really finished. It was just I got to the end of it temporarily.
Yeah. So that's what I've accomplished so far, and what I'm hoping to accomplish with that going forward this year is that I want to self-publish it at some point before the end of 2025. I've sent it to a select few people who I trust to read it and give me constructive feedback. My wife has already read it, and she liked it a lot, which was good. She did not really think of it the way that I would have written it. So, like, she kind of thinks it's a little. These are my words, not hers.
I wonder if I should put my fingers in my ears while you say this, so I don't get biased by what you think it is before I read it.
I don't know.
Okay, it's like reading the back of the book jacket blurb. I'll read the blurb.
Yeah. I'm not going to give you any description of the actual plot. I was trying to do something, what I would say is relatively deep, and I'm trying to be, meaningful with it. And she read it as kind of a smutty story. I keep calling it a bean flicker, but like, there's certain types of things where the art that you make isn't the art that you intended to make, and sometimes that's fine, and sometimes that's a problem. If that is what this becomes, that is not a problem for me, because the meaning that I meant for it to have is not opposite of that. It is just separate from that. So I'll give you an example. So, like, the fact that people love The Wolf of Wall Street because they want to be Jordan Belfort is counter to the point
Wall
of that
Street,
fucking
thinking
movie.
Michael Douglas was the hero instead of the villain,
right? Or Fight Club, when guys are like, "Yeah, Fight Club's such a manly movie," blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, you didn't get it.
You missed the point.
And arguably, like, sometimes those movies can actually make the problem that they're critiquing worse.
Like Joker, people like incels who thought Joker is a hero film. Yeah.
So like, there are some situations in which I could see my book. I mean, I don't see it having that kind of range, but like, it could have that kind of
over your book.
But like, within the audience, I could see it being taken the wrong way, in a bad way. Sarah taking it a different way than I intended I don't think that is bad. As long as it's not encouraging bad behavior towards women, which is,
I know this is not what your issue is. Your book isn't, but it reminds me of a book that was out a couple of years ago that was popular, that had a character that said discriminatory things about a marginalized group, and a lot of people stopped reading it at that point. This is crap. This is shit. Why would I read this? Mm-hmm. And then the reveal later is that person is part of that marginalized group, and they were talking through like an avatar kind of thing, and they were saying crappy things so people wouldn't know they were part of the group. Like, it wasn't the author's intent to make those as this stereotype is the right thing. It was the author saying this person was manipulating people who were bought into the stereotype because they trusted this character, not knowing they were one of them.
Yeah. That's actually, so I mentioned to you and to Alex about having Madhavi and Holly, and if you wanted to have Leah read it. I want women's opinions on it because I worry that women will be like reading the first couple chapters and be like, this guy sucks. Like, the author sucks. So I was hoping to get some feedback on that, because that's not what I'm trying to do is intentional, but what I'm not trying to piss people off. And that's a hard balance to find between, like, is the author a piece of shit or is the character a piece of shit? And so And I don't even know that the character's a piece of shit in this case, but that's why I want women to read it. So that's why I had mentioned that to you.
Yeah. It always confuses me when people are upset when characters who are clearly the villain do villainous things and say villainous things. Like, well, they're the villain. They're supposed to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that always confuses me. And people do,
Like
right?
the late great Hannibal Lecter.
I didn't even know he died.
Yeah.
I wonder if Stephen Douglas knows that Hannibal Lecter is dead. I think they were friends.
Who's Stephen Douglas?
Oh, I'm sorry, Frederick Douglass. Wrong Douglas.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I don't know who that is. Yeah, Frederick Douglass. He's been doing lots of great stuff lately.
Yeah, I wonder if he knows about Hannibal.
Yeah. He's starting to finally get some recognition. Yeah, so that's my big thing for this year as far as like personal goal. Obviously, I think I talked about it quite a bit last 4 months or so, but dealing with some mental health issues since it's been a long time. It's been longer than I've been talking about it. And I got some diagnoses and some physical and some mental health related, and so that I'm on 2 different medicines, one for anxiety and one for blood pressure. And I have like a follow-up with a doctor tomorrow to do some blood work, and so like I'm hoping to also get myself healthy this year, physically, mentally. They're both connected, and so that's the big goals for the year. What about you?
I need to get healthier in Q1. Like I need drastic healthier. That I'm a little ahead of Madhavi on my current physical fitness. I mean, like when we were on vacation, she was getting winded from we hadn't been out doing that much walking and that much travel since the pandemic. Like we used to do stuff all the time, and we don't do as much. So we haven't got there's a little much of recovering from that. Like, and I said, Madhavi's lost like 25 pounds in the last 2 years, but she hasn't really got the toning back. She's been sick so much she hasn't worked out much. So, and we're going. Yeah. And I say this only because we're going to Alaska next summer, nice. And for like 10 days or something like that. And so a lot of walking. I mean, we're not hikers, so we're not going to be doing literal hikes, but it's still going to be a lot of being outdoors and walking and being in places. So we don't want to get winded and not have a good time. So we need to, I need to drop a little weight now. She's already accomplished that. She's ahead of me there, but she needs to build up endurance where I have more. That would go for walks around the block, and she's winded before I am. And we both need to build up our walkology.
Where in Alaska? Will you be at a high altitude?
Probably part of the time. Like we're going to be at 10 days. We're going like a large range, like 2 or 3 days per place with train rides through Denali and plane rides. We make a scenic plane ride. Going to hot springs. We're gonna meet an octopus encounter where you touch octopuses.
Octopuses.
It depends if you're James Bond.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So definitely a deadline to get a little healthier, a little faster, so that we can enjoy the trip to its utmost. And it's Joseph and Leah coming with us, so we're doing kind of some of them didn't get a major inheritance from my father passing because everything went to my mother, but he did leave a couple of small inheritance 401s, kind of IRAs rather, that to me and my brother is just a little bit. Well, it depends who you are. It's a lot to my younger brother who's quit his job and his career to do a career shift and has been living hand to mouth while he's trying to work up to be making money in his new career. So it was a huge boon to him. And for us, it's like, ooh, this will help pay for vacation, to bring the kids and not just the 2 of us for an extended vacation on the other side of the country.
Yeah. The reason I ask about elevation is elevation, even when you're in shape. I mean,
I've been to Denver. I haven't lived there like you did. So I'm familiar with the breathiness.
Denver, I never had a problem with, but when I would go into the mountains, so I've been into the mountains a couple times, and at some of those places you're at like 11 or 12,000 feet, so that's not normal. I don't know what it will be in Alaska. But like my father-in-law and I went, we were driving from Denver to Moab, Utah, and we stopped in Vail for lunch, and we just walked around the town to find a place to have lunch. And in town it's flat. Like you're not like walking up and down hills. You're just walking flat. And we got back to the car, and he's a smoker, and I'm not a smoker, but we were both like, like it's so. Even if you get in shape, if you get winded, like don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, I had that. I was in the Alps last year, and we had to walk up again, not a hike, but like a 45-minute walk up. So we were walking up a distance, but we were in the Alps already. Like we were on mountains when we were walking to the top of the hill, whatever. And I was just, and I was wearing a down jacket, and then it ended up not being as cold as it was supposed to be. Like it was in a hot streak, so I was just waterfalls of sweat. My hair was damp. I was just dripping sweat by the time I was done, and then getting my breath was the hardest part. I was like, it's not even like I was telling coworkers, it's not just that my legs hurt because it's the middle of the pandemic and I haven't walked anywhere. I weren't even back in the office yet, really. I was like, but my breath, I can't breathe. I can't get my breath.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of that was just cardiac, like cardiovascular not being what it should because I spent the pandemic. When I'm at work in an office, I tend to walk around. I walk over to places. People, I take a walk around the block every, when I have a break in the afternoons. Working at home, I didn't really do that so much for a couple of years.
You may consider, just a suggestion, and I'm not saying hiking, but like you may do a hike at the top of Mount Mitchell because that's the highest spot, and so like that's the highest elevation you can get to around here, and that will do a little bit for you because that's what half of what they say is like. Nobody, unless you're like an alpine climber, do you have the friggin' time to acclimate properly. But like, you're supposed to like be at an altitude for a week before you start doing shit. So the way around that is like, go find stuff, and try to do it a little bit.
Yeah, but again, we're not doing any major hikes. We're just walking around at places that we are. We just, we know we know our limits, or some some of our limits. We're not overestimating too much. But anyway, so you're gonna have an excellent trip. That's the physical awesome. One is wanting to be ready for that.
Yeah, having a big trip is like a big part of like I consider that a huge part of the year too. Like just
and it's one of the nice things about we planned this before I switched jobs, but switching back to my old company and getting my old 6 weeks of vacation back makes this even doable. Like taking it's a 2-week break to do it. Which would have been half my vacation at my old company. On my new company, it's a third of my vacation. So that's nice. Doesn't take up my whole year.
And you're going to bring your recording stuff so you can record from Alaska?
I'm sorry. It's getting a little choppy. I am going to bring,
I'm at 12,000 feet.
I'm going to bring my wireless lapel mic for my phone so I can do restaurant reviews, food reviews, because I assume I'm going to be eating like reindeer, or moose, or elk, or some shit like that. And, which reminds me, my son and my daughter-in-law just got back from a week and a half in Saudi Arabia over the holidays, and Jacob sends me a thing saying, "You want to see 2 pictures of camels?" And the first one was someone walking with a camel like behind them, leading a camel from a distance. And the second one was a kebab on his plate.
Nice.
And he had kebab with his in-laws, and his father-in-law, who's about my age, said to him, I've never had camel before. Like, it's not a regional thing where he lives. Like, they were traveling. They were in Riyadh. And Jacob likes to try unusual food. So Jacob was like all excited about trying it. And one of his brother-in-laws said, "Oh, I know a place that I had it once." So they went to the place that he knew, but his father-in-law had never had it his entire life. So I think it's akin to being like, from the Northeast and never having had, chitlins, like, there are people who eat it all the time here where we live, just not where we're from.
Oh yeah. Yep. And Saudi Arabia is probably as big as the East Coast, I would think.
Very big, yeah. And very regional, because it was multiple countries that were put together by the UK. So the culture of where my daughter-in-law is from is closer to Persian than what the Saudi king is. And actually, during like the Arab Spring, the king kind of bombed a little bit of their area just as a don't think you're going to break free and join Iran. Because like that was a concern, always a concern of the king. They're near the Iranian border, and that they're more culturally and religiously similar to Iranians, so they're always afraid they're going to join with them.
So it's not really related to camel But my
But I was
cousin,
humping the other day.
and her
I was humping
boyfriend
my
have a
cousin and
dog.
her boyfriend the other day.
They have a
That's two
dog,
humps.
and
In Saudi, it's only one hump.
oh yeah, and the dog. One of the nicknames they give the dog is Moose Knuckle, and they brought the dog to my grandfather's Christmas party. And my grandfather's little sister, one of the women that you met at my party, she's 84.
Oh, Moose Knuckle. Yeah.
They said in front of her that the dog has a lot of nicknames like Moose Knuckle. Now that's what my cousin's boyfriend said, and it's like my other cousins are egging him on because they think it's hilarious, and he just will say whatever. He's similar in that way to me. He'll just say whatever in front of anybody. And my aunt, who's 84, says, "Why do you call her that?" And my mom and I are sitting next to each other, and we're just like losing it. And we had to leave the room. We were laughing so hard as he's trying not to actually tell her what a moose knuckle is. So those are our health goals and things.
So it's funny that you're working. Not funny, but it's coincidental that you're working on your novel, because my wife is taking a class at Wake Tech Community College on self-publishing, or how to get published. Not self-publishing. Self-publishing will be her resort if she can't get published. She will self-publish, but she's looking at, she has been writing a novel for her entire life. That's been like just her outlet is working on her novel. Like she's written it, she's rewritten it, she's redone it, she started it from scratch. But it's been an ongoing, it wasn't being written to be published. It was written to be written just for the act of writing.
Oh yeah.
But she's really happy with where it is, and she's thinking of polishing it off and trying to get it published. So she's starting that. And it's funny is that I do not want to get published in 2025. However, in 2026, I might want to. I have because my professional goal might be to retire by the end of the year.
Nice.
Depending on if the finances of the country don't get screwed so much that like my 401k tanks like it did during the pandemic. There's no reason to think it will, just because of the administration. I don't think that, because usually making the market good is what he'd want to do, because that's where his money is. So so I'm not overly concerned about it. But assuming everything goes well, after a year at my company, I can get retirement benefits, which include health benefits, so I don't have to worry about Medicare. I can leave the company with benefits at a really reasonable rate. So potentially, I might want to retire at the end of the year. We'll see how it goes. And if that is the case, then I want to turn to. I have a one-man play I've always wanted to write, and I've always wanted to write an improv. How to be a director, and how to, that's like in my head, it's been like a diet cookbook, where like the first third of a diet cookbook is the philosophy behind the diet. So it's my philosophies of improv and where I come from in improv and what I think are ways that are effective. And I'm very inclusive in my philosophy. It's not a mine is the right one. It's more of I heard this one and I took a piece of it. I heard this one and I took a piece of it. And kind of like Bruce Lee's learn every style and combine them with what uniquely you and make it your own, kind of that kind of philosophy for improv. And then, like when you have a diet book, you then have all these different recipes. And so the how to play these games would be like a bunch of recipes. And then the diet cookbooks usually have, here's a meal planner. So here's, how you put together a breakfast using those recipes, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner each day. So that would be like a section of the book that's, here's how to put together a show to have the right energy flow and different styles and varieties of types of games. So like sample shows put together. And like there's all different types of improv games. So that would be like appetizers, soups, entrees, desserts, all the different styles of improv would be broken up in my book. And I got a lot of the work written already, because from my years as being an improv director, I have a large improv Bible that was like our scene list. Every time we learned a new game or came up with a new game, or you stole it from someone else, massaged it into our version, I wrote it up in my book. So new players, when people join our group, I can give them this Word document that had everything in it. So I've got a lot of those recipes already written. I just need to write the rest of it, which is a job, which is why I say I'm not going to do it while I have a job. But if I retire, then it'll be my next thing.
And Chocolate Diamond Media could publish it if you wanted, and we can, because Because I figure like if we pool publishing resources, that could help too. Like as far as editing
That would
and
be
like
cool because I'm not looking. I don't because there's enough improv books out there that I don't think anybody would ever buy. I'm not gonna like. I know no publisher would go. We have to have this to teach improv because a million out there. So and most of them are self-published because that's the way to get them out because there's enough out there from big names that mine would never get a good publisher to come after it.
Yeah, that offer stands for Madhavi as well, but I understand if that's not.
But she's gonna see what she can do first, and then if she resorts to it, we can talk about it.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds like it's going to be a cool 2025 for everybody. We're still hoping to go to Italy this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I also don't know.
I keep telling you, you can just go to Olive Garden. It's the same thing.
No, it's not. Logan the other day says, is the reason we don't go to Olive Garden that often because Olive Garden's not really authentic Italian? And I was like, yes. I said, honestly, I would imagine this is the case for any group of people, but like you don't go to a restaurant that doesn't make the food you make as your culture as good as you do. So like I would imagine that like if you're a Mexican, you wouldn't go to a crappy Mexican food. I don't want to say Taco Bell because everyone throws Taco Bell out there, but I don't think Taco Bell is even Mexican anymore. That is stoner food. That is like, what if we put Mountain Dew flavored Doritos on chalupa? And, like, okay, that's a completely different category. But, like, whatever is a crappy Mexican food, you probably would be like, well, why would I get this when I can make it? Or
even just most, not even crappy, but most everyday Mexican restaurants in the area are very super Americanized. Like, because when we worked in North Durham together, there's taco places where no one spoke English and the menus were not the normal combo number 5. There were these things where my friend Lenny Hernandez, who spoke Spanish, would translate the menu for me because I didn't know what anything was. It wasn't the usual stuff. It was real food that Mexicans would actually eat, and it was delectable.
Yeah. That's definitely part of it. I also tell Logan like there's certain things. I mean, so chicken parm is an American invention, not an Italian invention, but still, I consider it a good Italian meal, and it's one of my favorite foods. I can make it. It's a shitload of work, and I tend to like it as much out as I do at home, so I eat that. I don't like it at fucking Olive Garden. So
yeah, it's so funny. It's because there's I'll name drop. There's a place here in Apex right near my house called Mezzaluna, which basically means crescent moon. I mean, I think mezza means half
moon.
But I think it refers to a crescent moon. I think
I'm like 520 days into Duolingo. I think I know a little more Italian.
But I'm saying, while it literally means half moon, it idiomatically means a crescent moon. Even though the words mean half moon, the image of near Mezzaluna is always a crescent moon whenever a restaurant is called Mezzaluna because it's really, they use it to refer to that, even though it's not half. They're not good at
Although they do have a lot of times Mezzaluna raviolis, which are semicircles.
Yeah. So I think it's like any phase of the moon kind of thing. It's thrown around metaphorically.
It's like the difference between semi and demi.
Yeah. And one's a glaze and one's not. One's a more.
One's a god and one's...
One's less and one's more.
Yeah.
So Mezzaluna, we go there a lot because it's close, and they're from the Bronx. I mean, they're Italian. I mean, the husband at least is from Italy, but then own restaurants in the Bronx. Now they're here, and my mom only likes one Italian food restaurant thing a lot. I mean, she eats a number of things. She'll eat ravioli, she'll eat pastas and stuff, but eggplant parmesan is her favorite thing, and it's a simple thing, but also hard to do really well because it's so simple.
Absolutely.
And one time we were getting food, and I'm like, I'll get you an eggplant parmesan. She's like, okay, whatever. Got it for her, and she takes 2 bites, takes a bite, kind of looks at me, takes another bite, and she goes, this is better than any place I've ever had it in my life. It's her favorite place ever now. And my brother did a review of Carmine's famous Italian place in New York, and had both famous for their eggplant parm. It's the best. My brother's raving about it. And my mother goes, I used to go there when I worked nearby, and I must have got eggplant parmesan because that's what I get. I have no particular memory of it. Like I'm sure it was fine because I went there, but I don't remember it as nearly as good as the Mezzaluna that you bring me. Like that I remember.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty good rating for them.
It's fun sometimes. I mean, Massachusetts is not obviously the same as New York City, despite what Massachusetts thinks. But they're kind of like Robin, and they think they're Batman. But Massachusetts, going back sometimes, we'll go get food or go to a place that we haven't been since we moved here, or in some cases since I was in high school. Like we'll be somewhere and I'm like, oh, I haven't had that since I was in high school, and then you eat it and you're like, oh, I loved this when I was 17, and this is garbage. And it's partly because, like, oh, this is the only place I could get this food when I was 17, and now, and when I lived in Massachusetts, there were restaurants that you could go to if you went into Boston, but like if you were in the suburbs, it was like TGI Fridays, or it was
like in the days before
Applebee's. It was
Yelp
the
and
shit.
Google reviews, you didn't know you knew what you were getting with a chain, but you didn't know what you were getting if you went to a hole in the wall unless you'd been there before.
Right. And so Sarah and I, like, are the first several years of our relationship was like Chili's and Applebee's more often than anything else. And since we've moved down here, every once in a while we'll be like, we haven't had Chili's, or we haven't had, because there's good independent restaurants here and there's good food. And then we go to it and we're like, oh, this sucks. And we were up and hanging out with some friends up in Massachusetts, and I said something about Chili's sucks now, and one of the friends goes, Chili's always sucked. We just were poor. We were poor teenagers.
We just didn't know any better, yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so is your mental health good today?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say something horrifying after you drink. Go ahead and drink. There's how every college town has the restaurant that you go to with your parents when they come to visit you, because you to go by yourself. There was a place called Daryl's, where when I was a comedian, we went all the time after shows. Like, it wasn't a high-end place, but as a college student, it's one of the places your parents took you. So my parents and my other parents, my dad's musical partners and his wife, who I jokingly called mom and dad all the time because they were both very tall, and people would think they were my parents when the four of them were together. So I started just calling them mom and dad at one point when I was 13, and until Hal died, pretty much. But they were all down, and we went to Daryl's, and it's a locally owned place, so American food, Southern food is what you trust on the menu. Winnie is looking at their Italian specialties, and she starts to giggle, and she's from the Bronx, and she starts to giggle, and we're like, what's going on? And she goes, let me read you the description of their lasagna. Now made with ricotta cheese. She's like, what cheese do you think they made it with before? So it could be, as a gourmand, you would say, well, maybe they made it with a bechamel and they never actually put that kind of cheese in it. It was a cream sauce, because you could do that and be, correct, authentically correct for parts of Italy, right? But we asked the waitress, are you ready? Cottage cheese.
I was just going to say cottage cheese. That's fucking nasty.
The restaurant your parents take you. Like, don't get Italian food at the Daryl's.
So that reminds me of two things. One is, one of my favorite stories that you've ever told me is about one of the first Italian restaurants that opened down here, and you went with a friend or something that was from down here.
Spicy Italian ham?
Yeah. How does he pronounce it, though?
Prosciutto.
Every once in a while, I'll say to Sarah, we should get some prosciutto.
My friend Tom Caruso, the waitress, goes, the prosciutto with melon is good. And he goes, the prosciutto. Yeah, it's a spicy Italian ham. And he's like,
Italian.
I will try the prosciutto.
So that's the first thing.
Who later co-owned an Italian restaurant. He was dying.
Yeah. So I want to say it was like 2 years ago.
Italian restaurant in Raleigh for 20 years before all the other places opened. It was the only good restaurant. The owners were from New Jersey. The waitstaff was not.
Yeah. So like 2 years ago, Sarah goes on a girls' weekend with her two best friends. One of her best friends was moving from Texas, and they were looking at South Carolina and Georgia, and they were looking at, is it Greenville? That's like south of Charlotte, kind of southwest of Charlotte.
Sure.
Yeah,
Greenville is a place. I think
it's Greenville, and there's Greensville, Greensboro. There's too many of them.
It's not Greensboro, so it might be Greenville.
Okay, I think it's Greenville.
Because Greenville.
So they go there. The three of them go there, to look around at some houses they had seen on Zillow, and they the three of them get together and they drink and they do like it's not like they don't need anything in particular. And they stopped at an Italian restaurant one of the nights, and the two of them get like some fancy Italian dish, and Sarah gets like noodles with butter. And the two of them get sick, and Sarah doesn't get sick. And I get on the phone with them later in the week, and I'm like, why would you fucking have fancy Italian food? One of you's from Massachusetts, and they're both from Massachusetts. One of them lives in Massachusetts. One of them lives in Austin, Texas. I'm sure the food is
a
better
major
in Austin,
city that
Texas.
has all the good stuff.
Like
yeah.
almost certainly. I'm like, why on earth did you go to an Italian restaurant? And they were like, because Italian's like a safe thing. I'm like, down here, Italian is exotic. Like we see more Ethiopian than Italian. Like I was like, they don't know what to do with us. And they were like, really? And I went into work the next day, and I was telling some coworkers, and they're all North Carolinians, and they're like, we've had Italian food. And I'm like, not real Italian food, guys. I know there's a couple good restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, now,
but also Greenville is not Raleigh.
Right. In the Triangle, there's plenty of good ones because, like I said, back 20 years ago, there was just Casa Carbone on 70. They literally were the only good place because they were from Jersey. What's happened is people have retired down from Massachusetts, from Jersey, from Connecticut, from Chicago, places that have an Italian heritage and food, and then decided, I don't like being retired, and open restaurants. So there's lots of good places. And that happening has forced the distributors to be here. Like when I first moved down here, there was no way to get good ingredients because the distributors weren't here. Now Roma, which is like the major distributor for most Italian places in New York, has a distribution on in RTP. So like everybody can get, if they choose to, the good ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was like, why on earth? I forget what they got. It was doorbell. I want to say it was like it wasn't a carbonara. It was something with like cream and like cream or a creamy sauce to it. I'm like, why? Why the fuck would you get that? I was like, spaghetti and meatballs is kind of hard to get food poisoning from. It's hard to like. It's not. You're not going to be. It's not going to be good.
Undercooked pork in the meatballs, depending on how good they're cooking in the first place. But the opposite story.
The sauce might be garbage, but
The opposite story is there's a town that's not a real town. It's like an incorporated town. It grew up around a resort in Virginia called Massanutten. So Massanutten's this big ski resort and a water park, and then a town kind of grew up around it. So there's an incorporated town that was not historically there before the resort was. And there's a couple of really good restaurants in it because it grew up around this resort. So good restaurants kind of open there. So there's this one collection of restaurants that like when you get the receipt, it's a coupon for the other restaurant because they're all owned by the same owner. But like the one's a really good diner, and then the other is a really good smokehouse and stuff. And there's a Italian restaurant, a high-end Italian restaurant that we've gone this place like 3 or 4 times that we would go to, but it's super high-end. It's a pain to bring the kids to because they're not going to eat enough of a meal to make it worth paying for what the meal is, whatever. But it's good. And there's a hole-in-the-wall Italian place next door to the diner that we really like. But you look in the window and it's got the paper placemats with the Leaning Tower of Pisa picture and the Colosseum picture and all that shit. And you're like, that place is not going to be good. There's no way. So multiple times when we went, we never go there. One time we go and we get to town and we're starving. We're like, let's just go to the diner. We go there and the diner's not open. And the Italian place that's connected to it that we would never go in is open. And we're like, we're just hungry. Let's not be fancy. So we go in, and Madhavi gets chicken marsala because that's what she gets in most Italian restaurants, and it's usually her test. Because she loves chicken marsala, and she often refers to it as chicken disappointment because it's never as good as she wants it to be. Yeah. And she ordered chicken marsala. Food comes, and she takes a bite. And she goes, "This is the 3rd best chicken marsala I've ever had."
Nice.
We're like, this place is paper placemats, and the food was just really solid, hole-in-the-wall Italian food. It wasn't gourmet by any means, but it was just really. But we were surprised in the middle of nowhere.
Nice.
The days before Yelp, when you could read a review and find out, oh, this place is good. People like this place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like Yelp is great too, but like Instagram is a great way to discover new stuff. Yelp is a great way to verify new stuff.
Right.
And I feel like those two
reviews, and then go
tools
back
are
and say,
huge.
okay, does this person know what they're talking about when they review a Chinese restaurant? Like read their other reviews from other places. And, or when it starts, I'm from Massachusetts and I know seafood. You're like, okay, I'm going to read this review because this person probably knows what they're talking about. Versus, I'm from Chicago and I know deep dish tomato pie. You know what the hell are you talking about?
Okay. I
love a deep dish.
I like deep dish. I do consider it a different thing. It's like you've seen the Jon Stewart, like it's a casserole.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's a good casserole.
I never feel good after I eat it.
A new Chicago style place just opened in Apex. I mean, it's a chain, but it's out of Chicago. Yeah. So just
is it Acme?
Yes, it is Acme. There's one in Morrisville, but one just opened up here.
There's one in Holly Springs too, but that one's kind of far for us sometimes. So there's a place in Chicago. So my friend Pat, who was on the podcast a year and a half ago, I think, Pat lives in Chicago, and Pat was getting married, and a few of my friends and I flew out for his wedding, and my sister was there, and Sarah and my brother-in-law. It was 2 months after I got married, so 10 years ago. We land the day of the wedding, and we land at like right before lunch or whatever, and so we all get together and we're like, well, we need to get some food before we go into the city for the thing. So we're literally asking the rental car lady, because we're getting like a minivan so we can all drive in together. We're like, what's a good restaurant like to have something that's Chicago or Illinois specific? And it doesn't have to be deep dish, but it could be deep dish. We're like, whatever you think is what we should have, what should we have? Because we're all hungry, but we don't want to just go get like McDonald's or some shit. So she goes, Illuminati. And we're like, the Illuminati? We don't want to go to the Illuminati. And she goes, no, Illuminati.
The inventor of deep dish pizza, or they claim to be.
Yeah. So we go, and the food was delicious. None of us felt good after we ate it. Like we literally, none of us had like a great night because of it. But it tasted good. And a couple of my friends and I used to joke about how we were going to open a deep dish place called Sal Manella. So
it's funny when you always take that chance when you're asking for a recommendation. On our honeymoon, we didn't have a lot of money when we got married, but we wanted to go around the world, and so we did. We stayed in Daytona and went to Epcot.
Nice.
So like we drove like an hour and a half to go to Disney. Well, Disney back then it was like you didn't need a week to do Disney. So we did Disney, SeaWorld, Universal, because it was 1992. They weren't that big. But we were staying in Daytona, on Daytona Beach, like on the beach. And first day we get in, we unpack our stuff, we take a nap because we've been traveling, and right after our day after our wedding, we're exhausted. We get up, take quick showers, go to the front desk, and ask, "Where's we want seafood? We're in Daytona Beach, right? First big meal, we should go for seafood." And she goes, "Oh, this 3 blocks up, you can't miss it. It's right on your left." I'm like, "Okay, great, thanks." We walk 3 blocks down the block and turn to look at our left. Red Lobster. And it was the time when Red Lobster was good. Like Red Lobster was crappy, horrible, like in the 80s. And then in the 90s, it was really good. And then now it's kind of fallen off a bit again. But still not horrible. Not as bad as it was in the 80s, but it's fallen off.
I've literally never had Red Lobster because I'm not a seafood guy.
But. Yeah. And so, but like, we're like, this is not what we wanted for our honeymoon, our first day of our honeymoon meal. And like either the next night or the night after, we went driving around. Because again, 1992, no Yelp, no Google reviews to look at. And we found a place called Aunt Catfish, and it was on the water, outdoor seating, like on the dock. The drinks came out of mason jars when you got your drink. The waiter comes over and goes, "Hey, I'm Cousin Kevin. What's your name's Cousins?" And like it's like not a theme park, but feels like, and like the food was just Southern style, like low country seafood, like from South Carolina. This is what we intended to have. Not send us to Red Lobster when we ask for a recommendation.
We want cheddar biscuits.
Cheddar cheese biscuits.
Yeah. I've never had Red Lobster. I also think it's crazy that you've been married since 1992. What time of the year did you get married?
October.
Oh, because I was in Disney in like April of '92. So I remember. I was going to say I remembered seeing you there, but
Yeah, I did run into someone we know, not at Disney, but at Universal one year, like like within the last 10 years, whatever. Madhavi and I with the kids were there, and we're walking out of one of the water rides. We're drenched, and I hear someone yell Matthew Cravat. Turn around, and it was my brother
different Matthew
Lee's.
Cravat.
My brother Lee's. There is another one. There's a lawyer from Massachusetts, older than me, a distant cousin. It's Lee's best friend. My older brother Lee's best friend from childhood, who moved to Florida when he was 13. And then Lee and he are still in touch. I mean, he was actually on our Hot Sauce Review show one time, but he lived in Miami, and he was up, and it was his first time ever at Universal. Like, he went up, to Universal one time, and he's sitting there, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh, it's like Lee." And that's why he goes, "I know it's not Lee." So he yelled Matthew because he figured it must be one of the other two. And so the randomness of running into my brother's best friend.
Height would have been the best indicator, probably, right?
Yeah, except
you're quite a bit taller.
He left when he was 13, and I'm 4 years younger than them. So I was just a little kid. So I mean, he knows, like, we're friends on Facebook or whatever, so we knows who I am, but knew we were not friends ever.
Yeah.
It was Lee's.
It's weird because I've seen people at Disney a couple times that I knew. So Sarah and I got engaged at Disney at Epcot, and when we got engaged, the guy that was running the gift shop that we got engaged in was like, "You guys need to go get a pin that says just engaged." We got engaged because there's a photo booth in the gift shop of imagination. It doesn't the ride exists and the gift shop exists, but the photo booth's gone. So he could tell us to go get a pin, so we get the pins. And day 2 at Disney, the next day we're like walking around, or we go into the parks, and we were like, let's put them back on because we got like a free glass of champagne at dinner, and we get like, so we're like, let's just wear them and see if we can get a little bit more for the second day. And we get on the tram like first thing in the morning, and it was spring break. It was our like final semester of college, and we get on the tram, and the kid from like one of my film classes is like, "Mike," and I was like, "Hey," and he goes, "Did you get engaged today?" And I'm like, "Yesterday." We're still wearing the pins.
So, as one of my wedding presents to my wife, I made a bunch of long sleeve white T-shirts and some sweatshirts, and with different pictures of us as couples, pick out pictures of us, put on the shirt with the date, and then honeymoon day 1, Magic Kingdom. That honeymoon day 2, Epcot Center. Honeymoon day 3, SeaWorld. So our entire week was planned out on the shirts, where we had to go every day. And we wore them every day, and we got front of the line. We got free food. We got drinks, desserts. Yeah, everywhere we went, because we were wearing the thing that said which day of our honeymoon it was.
Yeah, the night that we got engaged, we ate at the aquarium restaurant. We had those pins on the aquarium restaurant in Epcot, and and we got there early, so our like reservation was at like 7, and we were like, "Oh fuck, if we wait the whole reservation, we're gonna miss the fireworks show. Let's get there at like 6:15 and just see if they have an opening." So we go, and we're like, "We know we're early. We just thought if you had an opening, we would try to get in early, but if not, that's fine." And they're like, "Well, there's one seat, there's one table right now that we can put you at," and it was like dead center, up against the glass of the aquarium. And they're like, "Does this work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is great."
We had the opposite. We were at the fireworks one time in Disney Hollywood, and I don't know if I've told you the story. Did I tell you the story where Madhavi pretended she was an employee?
Yes.
Yeah. And then we went to dinner afterwards, and the girl who she helped out as pretending to be an employee, got us in after they stopped seating people because the fireworks went late, and she saw us walking out and dragged us back in and said, "You have to seat them." They helped me, and they seated us, and then got us a free dessert, and then they came over, the waitress, and offered us a free dessert, and we told her how we met the other girl, and we're like, "No, she already gave us free milkshakes," and she goes, "Well, then I'm giving you free cheesecakes to take back to your hotel." So we have
we're gonna have a lactose intolerance,
and I do.
Yeah. All right. It's been about an hour.
Also, this year I think we should do a podcast where we talk about the topic the whole time.
Yeah, we got 52 weeks, so I think we can do it in one of those. Yeah, we just gotta, I think we'll get back on topic a bit in next week or the week after. Like we'll come with a strong topic and we'll stay on topic. Yeah, we can finally have the Israel-Palestine debate that we've been wanting to have for the last year and a half.
Well, I mean, we better do it fast before
I saw a video.
Trump bombs Palestine.
I saw a video a couple days ago. It's I'll send it to you because it's a couple guys who make sketches, and they're fucking my favorite sketches on Instagram. And he goes to get a coffee, and it's like get the like tip screen, and it's instead of like 10, 15, 20, it says Israel, Palestine 25%. And the guy's like, and then finally hits 25%. He goes, "That's what I thought." It was excellent. Yeah. All right.
Palestine, because that's no tip because it doesn't exist.
And just for new listeners, if there's any new listeners, we did lose a couple listeners, by the way, on YouTube. But if there's any new listeners, Matthew does not actually believe that.
It doesn't exist yet. It's not. There's Gaza.
Sure. He's not saying it shouldn't exist.
No, it technically doesn't. There's no president of Palestine anywhere. Never has been.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That when they formed the country of Israel, they did not form a country of Palestine at the same time so they could coexist. And all this nightmare is because when England screwed things up when they started this whole problem in the first place.
Yeah. Yep. So
and that'll be in our special Israel-Palestine episode coming soon. Check listings.
Yeah. Never coming.
April 1st. It's coming on April 1st, everybody. Starting up Q2 with Israel-Palestine.
we could do like it was an April 1st episode of Citation Needed. I think it was April 1st, and they started doing
Ramsey.
Yeah, exactly. This is the episode, and then finally it was like 10 seconds in or 30 seconds in, and they were like, "Nope, we're not doing that." Yeah. All right, so I know we didn't talk about much for goals for the show. I don't have big goals for the show. Yeah, we're going to stay all the way on topic. I would like to get more guests this year. Yeah, so if you're listening and you want to be a guest, reach out to one of the three of us. If you know Alex or Matthew or I, just reach out and talk to us because we are looking for guests.
Come to us.
It helps if you have your own topic in mind because if one of us has to come up with a topic for you, it may be insulting. You
hear that, Cherry Butt? It's going to be insulting.
No, just like if it might be like a little stereotypical. If like, well, you're a Christian nut job, so let's talk about that. Or whatever.
Ellie just got a kidney transplant. Don't call him that.
He is not a nut job. You can be a Christian and not be a nut job. It's similar to toxic masculinity. It's a subset and a set. Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts before we start giving all the plugs?
My only thought is, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, if you have not yet subscribed, you need to subscribe. And, if you have subscribed, you need to ring the notification bell so that you can be notified when we do this kind of stuff, especially if we switch days. Did you guys notice, those of you watching live, it's Monday? Yeah, for 2025, we switched to Mondays. That's a huge thing. We didn't tell you that, but we did it. We switched. You never even noticed. And go ahead and like this particular video, even if you don't like it. I don't care. Like it. And then make some comments below. Take me on for my controversial stance on Chicago deep dish tomato sauce casserole. We're ready to have the conversation. And if you're not with the kind of video, I have no words for you.
If you're listening to us on anywhere that you get your podcasts, then you should do some similar things. You should give us a like, a follow, give us 5 stars, a thumbs up, whatever they have available to you. Reviews are on those platforms as well. If you wanted to give us money, you're welcome to do that. Money at patreon.com/talkingaboutthebigstuff. You can give us, there's $1, $3, and $10 levels. $1 gets you the episode 4 days early usually. $3 level gets you 4 days 4 days early, but it also gets you some extra content. And $10 gets you stuff that we shouldn't be giving you because it could get us in trouble. So
It's the stuff that sometimes after we say it, one of us ends up curled up in a fetal ball saying, "Why, oh Lord, why?"
yeah, or I say Matthew needs to not say that anymore. Although I am glad that I had not eaten dinner yet.
Yeah, it's usually something that's followed by, anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, speaking of so I use the word so much that when I was editing my book, the first go round of like doing all the edits, I was like, how many times do I start a sentence with so? And I think I took all of them out that weren't in dialogue, and I took out like 90% of the ones that were in dialogue. So, because in some cases it works in dialogue, it almost never works outside of dialogue.
I think it's cool if you do it. You
can
can do it a lot in dialogue as long as you stick it to one character. Like that's his affectation or her affectation starting the sentence with so. You can't have everybody start with so. Sounds like a sewing circle.
Yeah. That's all. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And we'll cut to that Alex bit from 6 months ago.
Cool. But before we do, I want to thank everyone for joining us to start off the new year by talking about the big stuff. And as a good resolution for you, you made it all the way through an episode. Make it through all the episodes. They're more than just an Instagram clip.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. It's just the beginning. If you have thoughts or questions or topics you'd like us to tackle in a future episode, drop us a line on our social media channels. Engage with this video when you are now watching it as a VOD on YouTube. Send us an email. We love hearing from our listeners, bringing us topics, because if you leave it up to the three of us, we're going to eventually be talking about underwater basket weaving. So we would appreciate you guys reaching out a little bit. Don't forget to subscribe to Talking About the Big Stuff on your favorite platform. Give us a 5-star rating. Engage with it. Criticize us. We need to grow and be better, and you're going to help us be there. You're going to help us get to that point. It really helps us more to reach out and also to keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more big ideas and more thought-provoking discussions. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep talking about the big stuff.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.